101 review. Book 101 is all about the books that I read for the last 40 years. And today I have my special guest. He's a board certified neurologist, Navy veteran, owner and founder of Transcend Health. No other than Dr. Ryan Williamson.
Hey, Daniel, thanks for having me. It's a pleasure to be here.
Welcome, Dr. Ryan on Book 101 Review. And can you please introduce more about yourself that I miss?
Absolutely, yeah. As you mentioned, I'm a board certified neurologist by training. Spent my first part of my career in the Navy, and really was very interested in performance based medicine for the first part of my career, based on what I was able to do with the Marines and sailors that I worked with. And in 2022, I left the military, went back to civilian medicine. And at that point in my life, I was back in the hospitals and seeing older adults that suffered largely from preventable disease, longstanding high blood pressure, diabetes, high cholesterol that lead to things like strokes and heart attacks and brain death and all the terrible things that neurologists have to see and deal with. And I realized, there's just a better way to do this. I mean, we can prevent the vast majority of these conditions from happening. And it reflecting on again my time from working with younger, healthier patients, said, man, let's take a look at the longevity literature and that space. And the science is certainly caught up there, to help people again, I think, live longer and just take better care of themselves. So I decided to write a book to help get that message out. Created my company Transcend Health, where I have a group coaching program, and I'm actually launching a concierge medical practice early next year. So I'm very excited about that to help high performers stay that way. And that's the short version, anyway.
And thank you so much for sharing your knowledge and wisdom to the world, Dr. Ryan. Thank you, thank you, thank you. And today let's talk about rewire your brain starting now. And the phrase starting now implies urgency. What is the first mental shift someone needs to make today to move from a fix to a growth mindset?
Well, the there there are a handful of I guess methods we could talk about here. But I think the number one thing that the average person can do to achieve clarity on their health journey is to really find their why and find what's important to them and their purpose in life. And in my book, The Incredible Brain, which obviously we'll talk about here,
Mm-hmm.
chapter one is in fact find your why. And the reason for that is that in my world, or at least when people talk about longevity or wellness or fitness or any of these things, I we can go a mile deep on mechanisms and on evidence and everything that works, for helping somebody live a longer, healthier life, and that's absolutely necessary. But I think a lot of people miss the mark, because if we don't understand why we are doing that in the first place, then
Yes.
it's tough for people to connect those dots. And I found if people take the time to get clarity on that, then it becomes very easy to reverse engineer a plan, from that goal, from that target or that why backwards, all the way back to where are you today. And I mean, maybe as a quick example, take somebody that wants to go run a marathon, right? I'm not saying that anybody
Mm-hmm.
needs to do this to live longer, but nobody just puts on a pair of Nikes and takes off and runs 26.2 miles, right? I mean, they've got to train for it, and you got to understand the plan and the nutrition and which shoes to buy and where do I start and do I run or do I bike first and get my cardio base built. I mean, there's so much that goes into it, but if the goal is to run a marathon, then you've got to create a plan. And in many ways, life is kind of like a marathon, a lot of ups and downs, and it's something that we have to train for, I think, in many ways to prepare ourselves for success. But anyway, that's sort of in a nutshell. I think starting with why and purpose is something that really helps.
Yes, and congratulations for being best-selling author, Dr. Ryan. So tell us the incredible brain, what it's all about.
Yeah, so it's really a longevity focused book, for anybody who's interested in understanding how to live a longer, healthier, and more impactful life. As I subtitle would suggest. And again, the chapter one is about find your why, but then the book is really broken down into two parts. Part one is what I call the mechanisms. So that's sort of just a basic high level overview of how the brain and the body works, what can possibly go wrong if we don't put the right lifestyle interventions in place. Spend a little bit of time on the most common types of disease that unfortunately cause premature death in people, or at least that lead to chronic disease, and what to do about that. And then the whole second half of the book is all about the interventions. So about what can you do to help prevent premature cognitive and physical decline. And the stance that I really try to take here is what do we know or believe to be true based on medical and scientific evidence. Because I don't know about you or your audience, but nothing drives me crazier than opening up my social media feed or turning on the TV or wherever I am and seeing misinformation that is so abundant. And in the healthcare space in particular, I mean, goodness, the longevity industry has really blossomed the last decade, but probably really in the last 2 to 5 years. At least it's been my observation. And there are a lot of people out there that that don't exactly understand what they're talking about, to put it politely. and uh,
Yes.
and a lot of people that aren't qualified, I think, to share some of this information. And it takes a long time and a lot of dedication, not just to go through formal medical training, but even beyond that, because even everything I learned as a board certified neurologist is still from the paradigm and the lens of a very reactive type of medicine. And I don't know how things are up in Canada, or at least where the majority of your audience is coming from, but in the United States, I mean, nobody calls a specialist until there's already been a problem. And that's I have an issue with that, again, because back to my time in the hospital with all these sick people that are on kind of a one way journey, and at their end of life. We can do so much better in terms of keeping more people healthy and productive and doing things they love to do, like hosting a podcast or writing a book or whatever your passion is in life. We can get you there. We just got to start early and be diligent and create the plan.
Be diligent indeed and stop procrastinating, people, and share to the world. Do what is best for you and what is your passion. For decades, the narrative has been one of the inevitable cognitive decline. How does your book fundamentally challenge that peak and decline model for brain health?
Yeah, that's a great question. So, I think that we all sort of inherently assume that aging is normal, because this is something that's happened to every person or every human that we've known that's made it, past a certain age. Obviously, there are unfortunately tragic and premature deaths that occur where people don't make it into old age. But for the average person that's had grandparents or that knows older people, I think we kind of expect to see people decline after, maybe their mid 40s or late 50s or something like this, certainly after age 65. And that's kind of become expected. And we know that for sure, if we don't maintain our cognitive and physical systems, and certainly if we abuse our bodies, we can get there a lot faster. But something that's fascinated me through all my years well, all my years in the medical space, I guess, is the fact that we all age at different rates. And I used to think, or at least believe incorrectly, that was largely due to our genetics, and that again, the medical evidence seems to suggest in most cases that's not true. There are definitely longevity associated genes, and there are definitely a handful of people that sort of get win the genetic lottery there, and other people that don't. But for the rest of us, which is somewhere between 70 to 90% of everybody else, it's what you do every day. And I've seen some striking examples of people who have aged into their triple digits. I mean, 103, 105, 107, that have these remarkably healthy bodies and minds, and they're active, and they dance and they exercise and they're sharp and they play golf. And I've seen people literally in their mid to late 40s who can barely get out of a bed, or people in their 30s who've suffered from a preventable stroke or a heart attack, and this is debilitating for people. So just I think being able to reframe the narrative that it's outside of our control, or that it's just genetics, or it's bad luck, or whatever. That's just I want to empower people to understand that you've got far more control than you think you do over all of this.
Your book subtitle is Powerful Promise. Your healthiest years can still be ahead of you. What is the most compelling piece of evidence that convinces you that it's not just optimism, but a biological reality for the brain?
So when we look at the medical literature, it really is never too late to start, and we can see a meaningful improvement, certainly in health span, which I think is a newer concept for people to understand, and in many cases lifespan as well, which is what people are more familiar with, or how long we live. But to double click on that health span concept for a minute, that basically just is defined as how long we maintain our current, or at least an optimal level of functioning. And so if you take somebody who's, I don't know, in their later years, and maybe a great example of this that I put in the book is a family friend of mine who was 87, started to notice a pretty substantial physical decline, and to the point that he was having trouble with his balance. He was experiencing falls. He was noticing he was having trouble getting out of a chair. And for the first time in his entire life, he just goes and starts lifting weights. he just he hires a trainer. He's doing squats and lunges and leg press. And I had a chance to catch up with him. It's been almost a year now. I guess it was last January, so maybe 11 months ago. And I mean, Daniel, this guy walked over to me like he was 30, gave me a big hug and handshake. And I mean, this is someone who could barely get out of a chair at 87. And a year later at 88, he's just a physically robust individual with great balance, and a sharp mind. So when I say your healthiest years are ahead of you, or it's never too late, I mean, certainly people can reach a point of no return, if, depending on the variables and the confounders. But for the most part, this is largely fixable for many people, and certainly the earlier we start, the better chance we have at maintaining that excellent health into our later years.
When you talk about our healthiest years ahead, are you referring more to a cognitive sharpness, emotional resilience, or creativity, or a new synthesis of all these that only comes with time?
I think all the above. Um, you know, our our brain is the organ through which we really decode and process the experience of life, and certainly consciousness, which in my opinion is one of the most fascinating, I think, aspects, if not the most fascinating aspect of life, because without consciousness it's hard to really do anything. And you could have maybe the healthiest or strongest body in the world, but if you weren't awake or alive to appreciate it, I mean, not to mention these things are really inseparable. You need a brain to contract muscles, so it's sort of a moot point. But you get the idea. It doesn't matter what your body can do if your brain's not active.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but you're without a healthy physical structure, meaning healthy neurons, healthy connections in the brain, which again is we know what we need to do to maintain that organ. I mean, you got to sleep well, you've got to eat well, and have the right macronutrients, micronutrients. You've got to have healthy relationships, and I mean, there's a kind of a checklist of things that we can all do to maintain that structure, just like you'd maintain a car, right? You change the oil, you change the tires, the brakes, right? Give it the right gas, that kind of thing. I think people can relate to that. So by doing that, we are preserving that structure to then preserve all of the faculties and facets of our consciousness, and our thoughts, our emotions, our creativity, all these things that you mentioned. And I think another tragedy of aging, especially when people start to lose those abilities, is that the longer we're alive and the more we gather experiences and perspectives, we really increase our value to society and to each other. I mean, maybe not even society at large, but just think about our friends and our nuclear family and our colleagues, just people in our own circle, and how much we have to offer with a decades of perspective and knowledge gained and skills learned. And when we unfortunately see people in our world that undergo this premature decline, that's really just a robbed opportunity cost of, number one, just more time together and more time doing things that are important and that we all care about. but also the intergenerational transfer of knowledge. I mean, there's a serious opportunity cost there in terms of what our elders could teach us and how much more they could contribute to society for longer. And I mean, there are even socioeconomic implications with this in terms of having a healthy, productive workforce, or not having people that are more of a burden on the healthcare system. If you want to look at it from that perspective, I mean, there are endless reasons why healthier people for longer is just a good thing for society.
Dr. Ryan, what's one surprising recent discovery in neuroscience that forms a cornerstone of your book's argument for lifelong brain vitality?
Which can you repeat that, Daniel? Sorry, just one more time.
No worries. What's one surprising recent discovery in neuroscience that forms a cornerstone of your book argument for lifelong brain vitality?
Well, one quick one that comes to mind, and I don't know that it's recent in terms of the last maybe few months, but certainly within the last decade and a half, is the discovery of an anatomic feature of our brain called the glymphatic system. I mean, I even remember I was in medical school when this was actually discovered. This is around 2012 back then. But I think many people have heard of the lymphatic system, and if you haven't heard of it, you've probably had experience with it. Anytime we get a little cold or an upper respiratory infection, and the glands in your throat and your neck get swollen and puffy, and they're uncomfortable, that's your lymphatic system at work as your immune cells gather and you're trying to fight off an infection or a virus or a bug or whatever. But we have kind of a parallel system that actually exists in the brain itself called the glymphatic system. So, like lymphatic, but with a G. And this is basically like a washing machine for your brain. And it's active mainly when we sleep. So about this achieves about 90% of its maximal activity during sleep, and in particular the first half of sleep, predominated by deep sleep when we're doing the body's doing all its reparative functions, and it more or less shuts off when we're awake. I mean that filtering activity drops to maybe 5 to 10% when we're awake, meaning that we've got to have restorative, restful, quality sleep for this thing to work. Well, why is that important? Turns out our brain burns pretty hot. Our brain makes up about 2% of our total body weight, but it uses about 20% of our energy supply, which is a massive energy cost to run such a tiny structure relative to the rest of our body mass. But as a result of that, we accumulate sort of metabolic debris and waste products, so just sort of junk as a result of all that metabolism. And that happens throughout the day as we're again doing podcasts and reading books and all the things we like to do. And at nighttime, that glymphatic system turns on and it clears out all the stuff that accumulates throughout the day. Well, if that doesn't happen, if we don't have the opportunity to clear that out day and night in and night out, I guess not day in and day out, those metabolites start to accumulate. And in particular, there's a protein called amyloid or beta amyloid that accumulates. And over time, we know this is a pathologic hallmark of the most common type of dementia, which is Alzheimer's type dementia. And so there's an increased correlation between people who don't sleep well and that glymphatic system is not turning on, or at least not turning on well, and people that accumulate this amyloid protein that we think is a predisposing risk, among other things, to developing Alzheimer's later in life. And I mean, other than maybe just a little bit of the kind of fuzzy, foggy feeling that we have after a night of poor sleep, we don't have there's not a meter we can check that says, oh, your amyloid's creeping up, right? There's not we can't check a
Mhm.
gauge like in a car, where, oh, shoot, it's time to like dipstick, right? Check the oil.
Mhm.
You can't check the amyloid. There's some, to really split the hair, there's some blood tests for people who are later in life to actually. Anyway, I'll skip that. But for all intents and purposes, you and I, there's no way to know this. So by making sure that we have quality, we're achieving regular quality sleep. This is and the implications for this lymphatic system, and not only that, but just our entire health of our brain and body. I think that surprises people how truly important sleep is. It's just a non-negotiable part of our day, in my opinion.
Non negotiable indeed. Sleep 8 hours or more. We know that the standards advise what's a novel or unconventional brain building activity you recommend that most people would not think that is good for the brain?
Again, another one. So besides sleep, that's an important one. Another one that I think may surprise people, excuse me, is exercise. Typically, people don't. At least I don't think they associate exercise with brain health. But believe it or not,
Mhm.
when we contract muscles, so if you're doing resistance training or cardiovascular training, your muscles release signaling molecules. So the general term for signaling molecules in the body is cytokine, but there's a specific type of cytokine called a myokine that gets released into the bloodstream and can actually cross the blood-brain barrier, which is this protective but semi-permeable membrane that separates our brain from the rest of our body. Our brain and our spinal cord actually exist in kind of a unique cavity in that regard. But these myokines can cross the blood-brain barrier and actually signal to our brain to increase certain growth factors to help increase connectivity in the brain. To a very small degree, it can actually reverse shrinkage or atrophy in specific areas, not to a large degree, but this can happen like in our memory centers, for example, in the temporal lobes. In particular, there's a little structure called the hippocampus, which is where short-term memories are stored. Hippocampus means seahorse in Greek, by the way, because it looks like a little seahorse, kind of a fun little curled up structure. But again, one reason this is so important is that area, that hippocampus, is classically one of the first areas where we see Alzheimer's like pathology. That area tends to shrink, which is often why a presenting symptom of Alzheimer's is short term memory loss, because that area is affected. And it seems we can buffer some of that and maintain a more robust and a stronger brain, if you will, by regular dedicated exercise. Um, there's also, again, evidence that not only do those myokines help, but when we undergo regular cardiovascular exercise, the actual action of our heart pumping blood through the capillaries of that blood brain barrier helps keep those little teeny microscopic vessels perfused. And that contributes to a decrease in what's called neuroinflammation. And neuroinflammation is, as it might sound, it's inflammation of the brain. And that sets off kind of an alarm system in the brain that can be damaging over time and can even sort of smolder under the radar. And that can cause premature cognitive decline. So there are endless tools in our toolkit here, but sleep and exercise are certainly two of the big ones. And I think, to your point, Daniel, that exercise may surprise some people in terms of how powerful it actually is for the brain itself.
Dr. Ryan, as an author, what are your short term and long term goals?
Short and long term, both.
Yes, please. As
Yeah.
well as a certified neurologist or neurologist, sorry,
No, no, of
and
course.
and founder also. What are your short term and long term goals?
Yeah, of course. Well, again, I went into medicine chiefly because I experienced a great deal of loss early in my life, and I think that's a very common story among anybody who goes into healthcare. And so my mission from the time I was young was to try to understand why bad things happen to people, or at least why medical
Hmm.
problems happen to people. And I've dedicated my life to doing my best to understanding that, so I can help relieve suffering. So that's certainly a long-term goal, I suppose. And with the book, I mean, a short-term goal is to just help as many people as I can better understand how their brain and their body works, and really, again, what's at their disposal to help stop things from going wrong, and how to live a longer,
Yes.
healthier life. And those are probably the two big ones. I mean, I think the more people that can be proactive and understand again the mechanisms and just the way that their brain and body works, I think the more empowered we all are and the better off we all are.
Good luck to your goals, Dr. Ryan, and looking forward for more success. And what would be your piece of advice for those people out there want to be like you?
I don't know if anyone wants to be like me. There's, there's a Yeah. Anyway, I'll skip going further there, but for my advice for anybody who wants to achieve success, first off, I just would encourage and empower you to know that I think, based on the way our brains and bodies work, anything is possible. I truly believe, that we are all born as unique, gifted individuals, and success in life is a matter of opportunity and exposure. And once you understand what your opportunities are and you're exposed to them, it's just a matter of finding that path, your passion, and really that why. And from there, I mean, it takes work. There's no question. I mean, I guess maybe sometimes, good fortune falls into someone's lap, but you've got to be dedicated to whatever it is, but that it's absolutely possible. So whatever it is, go get after it. And I mean, even still, that's good for your brain too. Having a puzzle to try to figure out
Hmm.
strengthens neural connectivity and helps your brain age gracefully. And again, I would encourage people to learn about the rest so they can maintain their body and do what they want for as long as possible.
Yes, and thank you for that advice, Dr. Ryan. And can you please recommend a book or books that influence your journey?
Oh boy, there have been so many. Um,
A lot.
a lot, yeah. The first one that comes to mind, and this has very little to do with the brain or health, so maybe it's a totally different direction for your audience. But a book that fundamentally changed my life because of the path that has since unfolded is a book called The Lifestyle Investor. It's written by my now good friend Justin Donald. I didn't know Justin when I picked his book up, but it's all about creating a financial health. So there's obviously physical health, but I think we all need to understand financial health as well to remove another big stressor from our lives. And I think Justin has a very unique system that he teaches to help people achieve that. And is an amazing, compassionate, generous individual himself who gives very freely to the world. And I think that comes through in his teachings and in terms of helping others achieve financial freedom. So there's one that is a different direction that I think, well, no, I don't think I for sure would endorse for anyone. No question.
Thank you for the recommended book, Dr. Ryan. And before we wrap up our discussion for today, I'm inviting you to please do listen to my other podcast, people, because my abstract essay is already in fifth season, abstract poetry in second season, my book 101 review in fifth season too, comedy 101 in third season, and food 101 in fifth season as well, geography 101, love letters, movie 101 review, music 101 in fourth season, science 101, sex 101 in second season, and my baby podcast law 101 and mental health 101, and of course Bible verses 101, and this coming December entrepreneur 101. Please listen to them wherever you listen your podcast. So, Dr. Ryan, if you could leave the audience with one single actionable insight from the incredible brain, one thing that start doing or thinking differently tomorrow, what would it be?
I would encourage everybody in your audience to consider their impact on the world and their ability even to just meaningfully affect change for one person. Because if you can show up as your best self with your healthiest brain and your healthiest body, and you improve the life of just one person, you never know what impact that will have. And that is a lesson that has come back to me time and time again from just somebody whose day I touched or just made feel special or empowered or whatever, and their ability to feel valued and seen and heard and empowered to go change the world for the people they know. And you can just imagine this compound effect or butterfly effect or whatever you want to call this that this may have for people. But you never know what kind of impact you can make in someone's life, and just showing up and being present for people, I think, is the best way to do that. And I truly believe that makes the world a better place.
A better place to live. And Dr. Ryan, thank you so much again for sharing your knowledge and wisdom to the world. So, can you please invite our listeners to support your book, your advocacy, or whatever projects that you're doing right now?
Sorry, Daniel, repeat that last question one more time.
Yes, can you please invite our listeners to support your book, your advocacy, or whatever projects that you're doing?
Oh, absolutely, yes. So again, the Incredible Brain is live on Amazon, so that's the easiest place to find it. And if you want to look into our group membership or even my concierge practice, transcendhealthgroup.com is the place to go, and that will link to all of that.
Yes, people, let's support Dr. Ryan Williamson because if we support him, for sure, more and more empowering books like this to come, more and more empowering advocacy will rise. So, Dr. Ryan, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, Daniel. It's been a pleasure.
Modicon people, see you soon. Likewise, Dr. Ryan.